Amir, if you don't mind, just offer water. I'm trying to connect you on my hotspot. No, just do that. I don't know, like, when you read this Okay, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. If you can settle down. Jazakumullahu khairah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah. Amma ba'd. Really, I wasn't supposed to be presenting or standing in front of you, but because Maulana Farooq Sahab put my name on the poster, I just had to stand up in front of you just to, make an appearance. Really, inshallah, today's session will be delivered by one of our final year student, Ubaid, and also our in collaboration with Anis, who is from XYZ Solicitors.
Z, yes.
Okay, I wasn't sure how to pronounce it, but okay, XYZ, right? So inshallah they will be delivering the session. We do want to keep it brief and short. So inshallah Ubaid will take about 10-15 minutes. And then Anis will take about 20 odd minutes, go through a couple of slides, and then what we want to do is to just try and look at one template so that you are able to then work through the template. And I don't want to put Anis on the spot, but over the last couple of months when we've been having discussion, one of the things what we want to do, and Anis very kindly offered, or if he hasn't offered, he will offer today, right, are their services into providing a basic Islamic will, right, free of charge.
Inshallah.
Yeah? So inshallah they will do that. So he will share those details with you later on. Really, today's session has been a follow-up from last year. Last year, as you will recall, over about 6-7 sessions, we looked at Islamic inheritance and then will. And we covered that in great details. If you weren't here or you missed it, I have been informed that there are YouTube videos about that presentation, so you can just search it and you will be able to go through all the videos over there. Today's session is not really going to be looking at the inheritance side of it, because the inheritance side, as we all know, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent us into this world, and we came into this world with nothing, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides for us. Today we read the verse, وَمَا مِن دَابَّةٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ إِلَّا عَلَى اللَّهِ رِزْقُهَا وَيَعْلَمُ مُسْتَقَرَّهَا وَمُسْتَوْدَعَهَا. That all creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are provided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the risk of a person is written before his birth. The risk of a person is written before his birth. So if you're a millionaire, हमारा कोई कमाल नहीं है. It is what Allah has decreed for us. And if we are struggling day to day, Allah has put us in that position, and both of them, having wealth or struggling with your wealth, both of them are tests for us. And then when we leave this world, we will leave empty-handed. Famous story of Alexander the Great, that when he was leaving this world and he requested people around him that leave my hands outside of my coffin, leave my hands outside of my coffin, so that people will know that this person ruled across the globe, left this world empty-handed. And that's the reality. Each one of us sat here, came with nothing, we will leave with nothing. So the wealth that we have, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given that to us to benefit from in this temporary state. What happens to this wealth? It was Allah, and Allah then decrees us what to do with it when we leave. That element of what happens to our wealth and who it gets passed on to, that element is known as inheritance. Known as inheritance. Ubaid will talk further on this slide, but normally when we talk about will, we confuse the laws of inheritance with the laws of writing up a will. Writing up a will isn't about who gets what. Yeah? You have some entitlement to certain area of your wealth where you can utilize that wealth. But the majority of the wealth has been already decided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who gave us that wealth. And like the way we have no option of how many rakats we perform in which salah. So sometimes people ask a question, why do we read 2 in Fajr and 4 in Dhuhr and Asr and 3 in Maghrib? One odd number, literally. And then 4 in Isha. Allah's decreed, these are 5 salah, these are how many rakats there are. It is illogical for us to ponder on that point. Similarly, the shares that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed, that a certain individual might get a half or a quarter or an eighth or 1/3, 2/3 or a sixth, whatever that share may be. And some people, in the absence of some, will get something, and in the presence of others they might not get anything. These are all laws of inheritance that are mentioned in the Quran. And you know, one thing I mentioned last year, that you will be surprised to know that if you wanted to read 2 rakat salah, the detail of how to perform 2 rakat salah you will not find in the Quran. You will not find how to perform 2 rakat salah, about how to stand up, going into ruku, going into sajda, the order, what to read in it. You won't find the details of that in the Quran. That was demonstrated by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who said, "Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli." But when it came to this wiratha and inheritance, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala went into great detail and revealed a whole ruku, and not just about what shares, but about different scenarios. If this person is there, then this person gets this. If this person is not there, this person will get this. That's how much detail Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes when it comes to inheritance. But as I said, today we want to focus more on wasiyah. More on wasiyah. So what are our rights in certain part of the wealth that we will have, and before our demise, what can we do with certain part of our wealth? What is a valid will? What is an invalid will? What is necessary to have? What is not necessary to have? What we can include in a will, and what we must not include in a will. And then to make sure that where our will, which we are writing, and sometimes we complicate matters. Sometimes it's not even that difficult. You can get a piece of paper and write on it and have it, countersigned by 2 people, and that would be Islamically fine and legally fine. But we want to make sure that the will that we have is Islamically compliant, and also living in this country, it is also legally compliant. And therefore, we have experts over here that will talk us through today's session, inshallah. If there are any questions at the end, inshallah, we will try and field those questions.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulih al-Kareem. Amma ba'd. So, as mentioned by Mufti Javid Hafidahullah, today's discussion and presentation is going to be on the wasiyah side of things. And just to put into context where this falls in the broader science. So, the science is known as the knowledge or the science of the stipulated shares, ilm al-fara'id. Or you might have heard of it as ilm al-mirath, the science of inheritance. And like Mufti has told us, this is something we have no control over. Allah Ta'ala has stipulated in the Quran with every single example, or almost every single example, what will occur to somebody's wealth. So just to give you an example, how this works. The mother, we have been told that the mother of a deceased person will receive 1/3 of the estate. But if there's children, her share will go down from 1/3 to 1/6. And then if there's no children, Allah Ta'ala in the Quran ayah, He says if there's brothers though, the share will again go down from 1/3 to 1/6. And like this for every single member of the family. So we have no room to maneuver in here. We just have to figure out who's alive, who the money is going to go to, and act on it. So then you might be thinking, well, if you've just told us that it's all stipulated, Allah Ta'ala has told us exactly what we have to do with our wealth, what are we actually going to write in the will, the wasiyah? So that's why it's important that we understand what the term wasiyah means in Islam. Wasiyah is not just the money aspect, rather it refers to all the instructions and all the directives of a person that he wishes to be executed after his demise. Yeah? So a few examples of instructions and directives a person may give is, after I pass away, I would like these two friends or family members to be my executors. Meaning I would like these people to distribute my wealth on my behalf when I pass away. Or a parent who has minor children, he may want to write down in his wasiyah, in his will, that if in the circumstance he passes away, who will take guardianship and custody of my children? Another person, he may want to write some advices for his family members, potentially how his janazah, salah should be carried out, or just some lasting advices for the rest of their lives. Yeah? And then the two main important points of the wasiyah, which we're going to talk about today in, inshallah, a fair bit of detail, are the last two regarding the money aspect. So although Allah Ta'ala has told us that X person will get Y amount of your estate, Z person will get W amount, He has allowed us to choose freely within 1/3 of our wealth. So the blue shaded region, if that was your whole amount of money, He's allowed us to have a choice in 1/3 of your wealth to dispose of it however you wish. So for example, with a few parameters and boundaries which we'll hopefully go through. But for example, a person may choose that I have a neighbor and he's been next to me my whole life and we've become very good friends and I would like to give him something when I pass away. This would be taken out of 1/3 of your wealth. Or a granddaughter who is not going to inherit, you may want to leave her something. So, or a charity or building a masjid. This, if you wanted to do this with your wealth after you pass away, you can write this in your wasiyah and it will come out of 1/3 of your wealth. The other thing which a person may want to do in his wasiyah, and he should do, especially in this country where we live in a non-Islamic Sharia country, to express express your desire to have your estate divided Islamically, so that it is not subdued to the UK British laws. So what happens after a person passes away? Islam has written out a timeline, a guideline of how things will occur after you pass away. So the very first thing that will occur when somebody passes away, of course his funeral and burial will take place. The cost and expenditure for his funeral and burial will be taken out of his wealth, his estate. Roughly in Preston, you're looking at about £5,000 per person. So this money will be taken out of the estate. If there's no money left, doors closed, finished there. But if there is, you'll move on to step 2. where the people, the family or the executors will try to ascertain, does this person have any debts on their head? Have they borrowed any money? Or is their credit card need to be paid off? Or any gas bill, electric bill from the previous days and months before they passed away? This will be the next thing which will occur. And then the third thing, after step 1 and step 2, we will look at, okay, has the person given any directives or instructions which he would like to do with his wealth? So for example, give to charity, give to somebody who wouldn't inherit. This is the next thing. Now it's important to note here, firstly, what do we mean by 1/3? Do we mean 1/3 of the entire estate, or do we mean 1/3 after step 1 and step 2? And it is 1/3 after step 1 and step 2. So just a very short example with easy numbers. If a person passed away and left £10,000 and his burial cost £3,000, he would be left with £7,000. And then imagine he had debts of £4,000 on his head. These will then be paid off. That leaves a person with £3,000. Out of that £3,000, £2,000 will go to the designated people in the Quran that Allah Ta'ala has stipulated. The remaining £1,000, if there are no directives and instructions, will also go to these inheritors, but a person would have had the option to choose where that £1,000 was going to go if he wanted to. So this is the order of distribution. So why is it important that we have a will, and why is it important that our will follows the rules? So the rules of a wasiyah are very simple. You cannot surpass 1/3 of your wealth. Secondly, you cannot change who these inheritors in step 4 are going to be. You cannot increase or decrease theirs. And lastly, you cannot give to any haram cause. You can give to charity, build a masjid, but to give to something which is haram would not be allowed. These are the 3 rules which we'll cover properly in detail on the next slide. But why is it important to have the correct will? Is because there are many ahadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam showing the importance. And I've brought one quite thought-provoking one, which I want us all here to reflect on. So I'll read it out inshallah. That it has been reported by Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that a person, he will live his whole life, 70 years, doing righteous deeds. But then when it comes to the time of making his will, he is unjust in making his will. And therefore, he ends his life with evil deeds, and this will be a means of him entering hell. On the other hand, a person may be mingling and involving himself with the people of evil for 70 years, his whole life. But when it comes to writing his will, he is just in his will, and therefore ends his life with good deeds and enters him into paradise. Now, you might be thinking, how is it possible to be so unjust in your will that this causes you to enter hellfire? Or to be so just in your will that this causes you to enter paradise? So hopefully on the next slide, I'll explain how a person can be unjust. There's essentially 2 ways a person can be unjust in his will. One is that he doesn't fulfill the compulsory parts of the wasiyah, the will that a person may have. And the other is that he acts on one of these haram forbidden. So we'll look at the mandatory first. How is a person unjust by not fulfilling this? If a person has any outstanding rights of other people, so this could be he has borrowed money off somebody and he has not yet paid it back, and then he passes away. If he has not written this down in his wasiyah, it may very well occur that this person is too shy to come to ask from the inheritors for the money that he is owed. And therefore, this person will not get his right back. That money that your children have is not really theirs, and this would be classed as being unjust. Or if the person did come and you haven't written down these rights of other people in your wasiyah, your children will be like, where's your evidence? We don't know about this. And they may deny it and not give the money that is due to that person. Again, then your inheritors will be eating haram wealth. They will be wearing clothes with haram money. And you and the executors will both be sinful for this. This would put you into the category of being unjust in your wasiyah and sinful. On the other hand, you may have outstanding rights of Allah. So for example, a person, he's been ill for numerous years, he's not been able to fast, he's hoping that he's going to make them up, but he passes away before that. For him to have written this down so that his executors, his family, can pay fidya, compensation for him, this again will be compulsory. So we need to make sure if we have any of these that they are written down in our wasiyah. On the other hand, a person can be unjust by carrying out one of the things which is not allowed in the third. So if he was to go and write down legally that I want more than a third to be given to a cause, even if it's a good cause, somebody may say I want half of my wealth or all of my wealth to go to building a masjid or to go to this orphanage and charity. This would be classed as unjust because you're taking away the rights of other people, the rights which Allah Ta'ala has stipulated in the Quran, the inheritance. Maybe you don't give more than a third. Maybe you don't give anything. You want it to go to your inheritors. But one inheritor, out of your say you have 5 sons, one son, he's given you some trouble and problems in your life. So you write a clause in your wasiyah and your will that my wealth will go Islamically, but this one son, he won't get anything. Exclude him from the will. This again is taking away someone's right. This again is something unjust. This will cause sin for you, and if this was to be carried out, whoever carried this out would also be sinful. So the question now arises, if I don't have any outstanding rights, I don't have any outstanding rights of Allah or the people, and I'm not planning, hopefully none of us are planning, to do anything reprehensible and forbidden and haram in our wasiyah, in our will, should I still write a will? Should I still go out of my way? Well, it's not really out of your way, it's very simple, but should I go and write a will? And the answer is yes, you should, for a few reasons. So you may want to write a will so that if you're in the fortunate position where you have a fair bit of wealth and your inheritors, they are also in a decent position in their life, and you know that they won't require this wealth, then for you to give to charity or any charitable cause or another person who wasn't going to inherit, your neighbor, your granddaughter, this would be absolutely fine. Yeah? But of course it would be from the 1/3, and your intention shouldn't be of malice to prevent your inheritors from getting anything. Secondly, you might want to write a wasiyah, again for who will my executors be, who will distribute my wealth, who will take guardianship and custody of my children, or just some general advices. And lastly, the most important one, us living here in the UK, where if we don't have a wasiyah and we don't have a will, there are certain legal implications which could potentially occur, certain family issues which could potentially occur, certain tax issues which could potentially occur. And hopefully, I'm going to pass on to Anis Bhai, who will talk about all the legalities, all the ins and outs of what occurs if a person does not have a wasiyah in Britain, UK, and why it's important that we have this clause in our wasiyah that we want our estate to be distributed Islamically.
There's a question here. We'll just take one question.
Yeah, sorry, just before the question, just confirmation of something first. So based on what you've just said, so if a person has a non-biological child, so a stepchild, so obviously because they're not a natural heir, would they benefit from the bequest up to 1/3 if that's what you decided? Is that right?
Completely.
Okay, that's right. And the question is, so if somebody had some sort of will behind with the worship, for example, they were behind with the salah, and they wanted to apportion some of their wealth from the estate, for that. Now, is that something that would that be classed as a debt, or would that come out of as part of the bequest?
The debts would be paid off straight away to other people. In terms of qadars or fasting or hajj, these will be taken out of the 1/3. So if out of the 1/3 you can pay for all of these fasts, salahs, hajj,
So that's not classed
that
as
would
a
take
debt.
it will not be classed, it will come out of the 1/3.
So you will have to make sure that it is included in your will. Yeah? So if you just write that I've got 100 salah outstanding, right? But you haven't given the instruction in the will that I want you to pay fidya for those 100 salah, then you can't take it out. Yeah? So you've got to say, I've got 100 salah outstanding and I would like my heirs to pay fidya for those 100 salah.
Jazakallah khair. Goodbye. That's a photograph taken a long time ago. We'll go to the next slide, if that's all right. So my name's Anis Dadu. I'm a solicitor with a firm called XYZ Law. We've got 12 or so locations around the country. One of them it's on Preston on Deepdale Road, just opposite where Sizzlers and Home Bargains are. So
what used to be Baba Solicitors, that's been now taken over by XYZ.
XYZ, yeah. Mashallah. Alhamdulillah. Next slide. Thank you. Yeah, so what I'm going to try and talk to you about is the legal importance and benefits of having an Islamic will, ensuring Sharia compliance and protecting your legacy. As has been said earlier, alhamdulillah, Ubayd by mashallah, that did a great job at explaining what the Sharia says in relation to Islamic wills. Mufti Saab's done a long lecture as well in relation to how Islamic wills operate over the last kind of few months, even last year and what have you. I normally take about 2.5 hours to go through just the legal implications, but because I'm doing it in 20 minutes and stuff, trying to condense all of it in there, I'm going to try and be as quick as possible so that we get enough of an opportunity to go through an actual free Islamic template which you can hopefully all use to create your wills hopefully at the end of this session today, inshallah. So what's an Islamic will? What does it do? An Islamic will, all that it does is ensures that your assets are distributed in accordance with both Sharia principles and with the law of England and Wales. Without a will in the UK laws of intestacy to state the asset distribution, which basically means that your assets may not go in accordance with the Sharia principles, which unfortunately if you've lived the life of a Muslim all your life and you end your life as Ubayd said, or without having a proper will in place and your assets get distributed in an incorrect manner, then there could be something to think about in the hereafter. Submit your answer. And again, we also talk about protecting your heirs and fulfilling religious obligations. What some of the reasons for having a UK-based will, which complies with Sharia principles. So, what are the key benefits? First of all, Sharia compliance ensures your wealth is distributed in accordance with the Quranic injunctions. Most importantly, which I've seen a lot at the moment, is it prevents disputes from occurring. If you have a written piece of paper which says how you'd like your assets to be distributed, your heirs don't really have they really don't have a say in how your assets are distributed because you've already written them down how you'd like them to be distributed. It allows charitable giving. As Ubayd said, a third of your assets can be distributed to charity. 2/3 need to be distributed in accordance with the Quranic verse. When the third is also a Quranic verse, but a third can be given to charity by way of sadaqah jariyah, by way of miss salah, by way of miss zakat, sadaqah, all that type of stuff. It also ensures protection for dependents. So if you've got youngsters, young ones, you want to know that you want to make sure are looked after properly. It allows this allows it to be looked after properly, and it's legally recognised in the United Kingdom. So so if anybody disputes it, you've got it written down, and it's recognised by the UK courts as well as the Sharia courts. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this because this could take a long while. I know tax considerations are quite major. I mean, UK estates over £325,000 are subject to a tax rate of 40%. So that's a huge sum of money, to be honest, to be paying. You've worked all your life to try and create some wealth for yourself, and there you are giving 40% back to the Treasury. I know whilst we're working and stuff, we try to avoid this as much as possible. Why shouldn't we try to avoid it when we're kind of no longer here? And it's legally compliant. What an Islamic will do is make sure that you can do this in a tax efficient manner, using exemptions such as gifts to spouses, charities, which are tax free, structuring your assets to minimise tax liability, and potentially seeking advice in relation to making a Sharia compliant inheritance tax will, which will be brilliant in relation to going in hereafter as well. Thank you. Before I go on to this page here, I'll just say a little bit about this tax planning thing. So first, £325,000 of your assets are tax free. If you're married, then that goes up to £650,000. If you are going to be distributing your assets to your children, so the offspring, then that could potentially be up to £1 million. So over £1 million, the 40% tax threshold will kick in. again, the element of this free Islamic will template really is to ensure assets. So there's free. If I'm looking around here, there's youngsters, there's some people who are slightly middle-aged and some people who are slightly older than that. What I tend to advise people is, if you're up to about 25 years old, create a simple basic will which will cater for your needs, because they'll go up to the £325,000 mark, and you've got something written down, you know what your assets and liabilities are, and they'll be quite simple. From about 25 onwards, when you start getting married, having children, maybe having a house, maybe shares and all the other bits, ISAs and stuff, then you start looking at maybe getting something a bit more complicated, a bit more tax efficient. So you maybe take some more legal advice, some tax advice. And then when you probably reach about 40, 45 or so, when you're pretty much settled, your kids are growing up, and then you've got a few more assets to be worried about and thinking about, try and take some more proper tax advice on it, because there could be some, the tax rules change all the time. So by speaking to someone who's a tax kind of lawyer or someone who's proficient in tax, they'll be able to kind of help you gear your will in relation to making it sure it's as tax efficient as possible. So the will I'm going to go through will be a simple will, and then we'll cater for a different, more of a bespoke will later if you need that advice on that. So the steps to drafting an Islamic will: pretty much consult an Islamic scholar or an legal expert. Mashallah, Bayubay did a fantastic job. Mufti Saab's here as well. Ensure it's compliant with the Sharia and UK law. Identify your heirs and assets. Again, this won't be within the actual will itself. The will will just show, when I go through it, it'll just show you a little bit about who you are, how you'd like your funeral wishes and that type of stuff. And then this little document at the end of it, which will say what your assets are. So you're writing down pretty much whatever you own and stuff in a separate document, and that changes from day to day. You determine your bequests. That basically means that third that you've got to be able to do whatever you want with, you can decide now what you want with it. So you can give it to charity, you can give it to your, sadaqah, khairat, that type of stuff, and also give it to non-inheriting relatives. So it might be a neighbour that potentially has done lots of work for you. You may want to give some money to them. You can't take it away from your inheritors, but you can certainly use that third to provide that to that individual. We'll talk about, you need to appoint an executor. Basically, this is the person you're going to entrust to carry out your wishes from your will. My advice usually is get somebody who's knowledgeable in Islamic inheritance law, and someone that you're comfortable with. Maybe perhaps your local imam of your masjid, perhaps someone who you really trust, knows your family really well, and who you can trust to keep the deepest, darkest secrets and to enable them to carry out your wishes in an efficient manner. And then the witnessing and legal formalities. Literally what Mufti Saab said was correct. All it needs to be is, it just needs to be in writing, it needs to be dated, it needs to be signed in the presence of two adult witnesses, so wetting signatures unfortunately still. You can't use DocuSign and all that type of stuff yet. So it's got to be printed off, signed and witnessed by two individuals. Again, those individuals can't be beneficiaries, can't be your relatives, must be over 18 years of old, be of sound mind, thereforth. I think that's, from what I understand, that probably is it. So the summary and call to action here is, having an Islamic will ensures a smooth, dispute-free inheritance process. It provides tax benefits whilst maintaining Sharia compliance. My thing would be to seek legal and Islamic guidance in drafting an Islamic will, although we'll do one straight after the session now. If you need anything more bespoke, contact a qualified solicitor or someone who deals with wills. So make sure that your will is or will be recognised under UK law. No point having this document if it's not going to be enforceable in the UK. Again, Bayubay said this hadith, it's a duty of a Muslim who has anything to bequeath that he should not even spend 2 nights without having his will already written. Alhamdulillah. And there's two things in the English anecdote, there's two things that happen. There's two things certain in life, which is death and taxes, unfortunately. So, alhamdulillah. So there's, at the end of this slide, there's a few kind of bits we've got in. The first one is the ethical, first ethical free will template, which I'm going to go through now. The second bit is the testator's assets and finance identifier. So this is just a little template that kind of identifies what your assets are. And then, I haven't got the link there, but I think that IDA one tells you how it helps you calculate who your inheritors are going to be. So a little calculator in there which will say, if you put in who you've got as your family members, hopefully automatically it'll kind of point to you how much or where or whom will get what amount of your inheritance.
So before Anish moves on to the template and Ubay just changes the laptop, just to, you had the 3 links over there. Through WhatsApp broadcast, some of you, well, all of you on the broadcast should have received those links. The template is a Word document, so you can, as we're going through, you can start writing, typing in it, or you may have already done so. Sorry. So you can use that. Yeah. The second document that was there. So this is the first document, which is the first ethical template, and it is a Word format, so you can use this. The other one was the IDA template, which is much more simpler. Even that will do the job for most of us. Yeah. This goes a bit more in detail. So you can use any of these free templates that are available. The key thing is the correct information is included and then signed and everything else. The second document that was on the link was to help you. I think it's Peter, scroll down slowly. So you got this one. What's most important over here, just pause there for a bit. What's most important over here is the key to identify the assets of the deceased individual. Because what normally happens, that we are not very clear when somebody passes away, that what belongs to whom. So many a times people will come to me and say, we've got to distribute the house and it was in joint names. Okay, fine, we'll distribute the house. So were you both 50-50 owner? No, I worked all my life, I paid, the deceased now, marhum. Yeah, he worked all his life, it's his money, the wife didn't work anything. But it was customary to ensure that husband and wife's names are there. The wife doesn't have to work to be the joint owner of the house. But there needs to be some level of clarity whether the house belongs to the husband, although it's in joint name, or does it belong to husband and wife? And if it belongs to both, is it 50-50, or is it 60-40, or what are the ratio? Similarly, they say we've got a joint account. So is the money in the joint account, does it belong to both of them 50-50? So if there's 10,000 in the account, in the joint account, is it 5,000 each? Or is it the husband that is working and the money is going into that joint account, and the wife has access to the joint account and she can use as much as she wants, but she is not the owner? In Islam, you have milkiyat and manfa'at. Milkiyat is ownership and manfa'at is benefiting from. So although you've got joint account, that money could be yours and your wife has 100% access to it. She can use 5% of it or all of it. Yeah? But end of day, that money is yours. So you've got to be clear about if that money in the bank account, who does it belong to? Because if the husband passed away in the joint account and the wife was 50% partner, then inheritance will only run in 50% of that balance. If the husband was 100% owner of that amount, then in the total balance, laws of inheritance will run. Are we clear? So this document, as we scroll down, we're not going to cover this, but again, this link has been sent to you, and further down, what you will see over here, carry on until you come to the first table. Carry on. Stop there. So for example, if you got multiple bank accounts, they could be all in your name, could be in joint names. Sometimes you have your child's account, and really it's the father's account, but you put, for many a reason, you put into children's account. So although legally it might be child's money, Islamically that could be your money. Just because I bought a house and on the deeds I put my young son's name on it, legally he will be the owner. Islamically, has that ownership been transferred from the father to the child, or he's just put his name down for some other reason? Yeah? So you've got to be very, very clear about who the owner is. So in the account, you got your account number, so code, whatever, partner's name, and then percentage of share of those accounts. And likewise, everything in the house and everything that you own. So whether it's property, your bank balances, ISAs, shares, your appliances, sofas, your everything that's in the house that you own. Yeah, all that, as you go down the document, it will cover everything. So what you need to do is make sure these things are clear. Last day, if you remember, I mentioned that Mufti Taqi Uthmani, he writes that when my father, Mufti Shafi Sahab, who used to be the Grand Mufti of Pakistan, when he passed away, we knew exactly what belonged to him. Because every night what he would do is, in his room, he will just make sure that anything that did not belong to him did not stay in that room. So when he passed away, everything that was in that room formed part of inheritance. Yeah? Sometimes, to us maybe something insignificant. My pen. Yeah? If I pass away, that pen will form part of my asset. And because it will form part of my asset, it will need to be distributed. Yeah? You've got your washing machine at home. Who does that belong to? Yeah? Or that cooker. Don't say it belongs to the wife. Yeah? She may be using it, but who does it belong to? But do you understand that we have so many appliances at home worth thousands of pounds? You got your DFS sofa that you're sitting on it, and culturally we just say aprutta. Yeah, apna hi hai, baith jao. Yeah? But all those things are of value, and anything of value, I might go a bit further. The fork and knife in your cutlery set. Yeah? I can't just say, okay, we're going to sell the house now, our parents have passed away, I'm just going to pick that up and throw it in the bin because nobody's going to use second-hand cutlery. I can't do that Islamically. Yeah? That fork and knife has value. Yeah? I don't personally have the right to just dispose of it. I've got to ask all the inheritors, ask them what they want to do with it, then do it. Similarly of the clothing. So anything of value needs to be clearly identified to whom it belongs to, and then in your asset register, you have everything at workplace, your asset register about this table, this chair, where it is, and when it gets moved from one floor to the other floor, then make sure that on the asset register it's been uploaded. Same thing over here. So that when you pass away, and we don't know who passes away when. So if today I was to pass away, will the people behind me know exactly what they are distributing and what they are leaving out? Yeah? So this document to me is very important. So sit down, as a family, fight it out if you need to. Yeah, this belongs to me, or I paid for it, or it belongs to you, I give it to you. But just be clear about things. Yeah, but be sensible. Yeah, we don't want other counseling services to get involved. Okay, so the next document, go back to the Word document. This is the first ethical template, and now Anis will inshallah just talk you through. I've got about, I didn't expect this many people, and then I thought nowadays most people just take their phone up and work through it. But then I knew that there will be some oldies like me that still work through paper. So I've got about 8-10 copies. So if anybody wants some, there's one over there.
Why is it all the youngsters are putting their hands up? I don't understand. What's it? That's fine. Okay, that's fine. Got it. So.
And then they might just ask you some questions.
I'll direct them to you.
You're next.
Right, Jazakallah khair, Mufti Sahab, and shall we go into the will template, if that's all right. Have you guys managed to download the template on your phones yet? No? It's on the WhatsApp group, isn't it? Do you know? It's an Astafa WhatsApp group. You got it?
If you're not on the Super broadcast, you can join on that Super broadcast, or ask the person next to you if they're on Super broadcast to just forward it to you.
Sounds like a plug here for Astafa. And what Mufti Sahab said earlier as well, please don't go home and fight with your missus and stuff. So we don't want to kind of get some other counselling services in place. Alhamdulillah. So this is the free will template. Again, I mean, I'll keep it as it is. I mean, you don't really, you don't need to fill this page in, but I think we should do for the sake of completeness, purely because it'll kind of add to the whole kind of thing behind it. So it's a will of, your name and the day it was dated. Very, very important. If we go on to the next page now, there's important guidelines here at the moment. I'm not going to go through every single one of them because we just want to go through the main bits. This is the top 3 points are very, very important. The first thing, it says that it's only for those individuals who've got assets in England and Wales wanting an Islamic will, or a will that's valid under English law. The second thing it talks about is it's only valid, it's really only for those individuals whose assets are valued at less than £325,000, or for married couples are valued at £650,000. That's double the value there. As 40% inheritance tax may be applicable on any assets over this amount. As I explained earlier, there'll be the £175,000 additional top-up on each of your individual to take it to £1 million. But then there are some things that you need to do. You need to set up a little trust in your will, which I'm more than happy to help you with after the talk. But it's a bit more, just a bit more work that needs doing to it to make sure that kind of works. Gee.
Can somebody have 2 wills, like one for the UK assets, one for the non-UK assets?
Generally, there's got to be one will, and that's the last will. In here, you can put although it's a UK-based will, it's still applicable elsewhere. So you can utilise this will to enforce your kind of assets or do your assets abroad.
To beat the threshold to have the other will with, so the UK base with 325, whatever the thresholds are, for tax purposes.
Yeah.
And then the second will for overseas assets.
Generally not, to be honest. So when you're declaring your assets in this country, you need to be declaring your assets worldwide. So in reality, you need to be putting all your assets in here. So the answer to your question, the UK law, unfortunately not.
Islamically.
Islamically, Mufti Sahab? The third thing is those who expect surviving family to be amicably distribute their assets. So yeah, if you want a bit of a fight afterwards, then I'd just leave it blank, to be honest. Let them fight it over after you're gone. But yeah, I mean, it's those individuals who want to kind of utilise the Sharia method of doing the wills to ensure that assets are distributed in accordance with Sharia will, Sharia compliance, as well as UK matters. So this other bits is generally, it just gives you some ideas and notes of how to fill the form in. So I won't go there. I'll stay here. So one thing important bit here is, I mean, to make sure this is valid, what you need to do is just three things, to be honest. First thing is to make sure it's signed properly and witnessed. And second thing, it's dated. And when I say if it's unsigned, undated, then unfortunately, or it's not witnessed correctly, the will not be valid. So just when you're writing it through, just get somebody else to just look over to make sure that's been signed properly, it's dated, and it's been witnessed correctly. And what I said about the witnesses earlier, they can't be family members, they can't be beneficiaries, can't be inheritors. So they've got to be completely independent on that basis. So let's go on to the first page. So at the top of that, at the top of the page, what you'll find is you need this is quite important. You need to write your full name in there, your address. So you might be called Abdul legally, but you might be known as something else. Otherwise, Ben, Jan, John, whatever, you know, as a nickname and stuff. Put both in there, otherwise known as, because then we need to be able to identify who you are to your friends as well as your family. You put your home address down there. And the next point at number 1, it's revocation. This is very important. For a will to be valid in the UK, it's got to revoke previous wills. And the last dated will is the one that's going to be enforceable. And all the wills before that have got to be revoked. Number 2 talks about declaration of faith. I won't go into it. It talks about, you know, the kalima, you know, and what have you, and mashallah, you know, it goes into the things about how you want to be buried, not cremated, etc., etc. Very important for us, but that's boilerplate clauses, as we'd call them. The other kind of thing is this is the third bit here, which you need to change, is advice to my executors or trustees. So the executor is the individual who will go out there and tell you, or will action your wishes. So very important that the individual that you choose is trustworthy, honest. Someone like Mufti Sahib, or someone, you know, your imam of your local masjid is probably an ideal candidate for this. And in talking about the third of your assets that need to go to, so please note, if you have something to enter, this bit here is only applicable to any charitable donations that you wish to give, anything other than how you want. So you got this third element which you can give to charity, or for salah, or missalah, or rose, or whatever it might be. Here you put in those bits here, specifically what you'd like to do. And then kind of you go down and say you nominate your executors to proceed with the distribution of assets after the following bits, which is payment of funeral expenses, payment of all the debts, payment of the will as set out below, and the distribution of the assets in accordance with Islamic Islamic principles. 3 goes on to your funeral wishes, how you'd like to be done. So it's again usually the usual kind of bits where ghusl and kafan, and you know, some people utilize their ihram as their kafan, etc., etc. You can just amend that up a little bit if you wanted to do that. And he also talks about, you know, things like, you know, MRI scans, and whether you want what you want to do with your organs. You know, the donation opt-out at the moment, you want to make sure that your body isn't kind of cut up and your organs done with. It's very important, especially after COVID, where lots of people went in and they didn't have their usual kind of friends and family around them to do the talqiyah, the kalima and stuff like that, and also what they wanted to do with the assets, and they were then it was unclear as to how what happened to their organs. Well, luckily enough, we've got lots of imams in hospitals now who are able to help with that aspect of it. So alhamdulillah, you know, we're fortunate in that respect. And then if you've got young kids, what you can do, young kids or kids who haven't got capacity, then here you can put in who you'd like to have ownership or guardianship of those children. And then you put in the name and address of those individuals and name and address of the person you'd like to appoint as guardian of your children. And then you'd appoint your executors and trustees here. Normally you have 2, purely because if one is not around for any reason, hopefully the second one will be. And then boilerplate clause 6, what happens to the residue of estate? What happens on where you're holding funds which are on trust somewhere. So you might have a pension pot or something like that. You might have something which is held on trust somewhere. What you'd like to happen to that element, who you'd like to be the new trustees of that kind of bit there. And then again, standard provisions here. It talks about, you know, Section 33 of the Wills Act 1837. That's the last time that the Wills Act was amended. And the Thalata, Trustees of Land and Development Trustees Act, deals with how the trustees should be appointed. If something was to happen to the trustees or were no longer around, you'd kind of this act would kick in to appoint new trustees. And then at the bottom here, you date it when you signed it. You sign it, and this has got to be in wet ink signatures. Although you might be changing it on Word on your phones at the moment, ensure that it is printed off. It's signed in wet ink, so actually with a ballpoint pen or a pen. And then your witnesses have got to be there witnessing you signing this, and they've got to contemporaneously sign that as well. You put their name, address, and occupation here. And then at the bottom again, you can kind of sign for the witness will sign on that dotted line there. And then here, this is the assets register. So Mufti Sahib showed you that big form that Maulana Noor, was it, isn't it? Yeah, it did. That's probably a better one to use. This is a shortened version of it. It's in editable form. It still tells you about you know, the major assets. If you've got any homes, you can kind of like put in here. You've got, you know, properties, bank accounts, shares, ISAs, jewellery, whatever you might have, and then the assets. And then because it's an editable table form, you can add stuff on here as well. So if you want to use a basic one to kick it off at the moment, this might be a good one to use. As also, because it's at the back of the will, you can always amend it and attach the revised version of it without having to redo your will again. All you're doing is you're utilising this as an annex, which you can kind of keep updating as the assets kind of wane or grow, inshallah. So that's about it really in relation going through the will.
Okay. I think that's about it. We've gone slightly over our time. I thought it was important to just cover this understanding. Also, through the broadcast list, the next steps will be shared with you about if you wanted any kind of additional support, then how to get in touch with either my I'm forgetting that the ladies are home listening. So from here onwards, it will be about, if you've got any questions, Anis will be around, Ubaid is also here. You've also got other year 6 students. Put your hand up so that people know. Khan Sufyan, put your hand up. Abdullah, Qasim over here, Amir. Yeah. So they'll be able to help you through that. Myself, I'll be around if you've got any questions that you want to ask. What we will also do is through the broadcast list, how to get in touch with Anis, or if you wanted further information about, once you've done your template, if you are able to just work through it, have it countersigned, you're happy with it, you can just have that signed, let somebody know where your will is, so that, because once you're dead, you won't be able to tell them that I've left the will there, yeah? Sorry, that was a dead joke.
I'd just say with that, I mean, normally people put the wills with wherever they keep the passports. So you kind of, if passport's quite an important document, so they tend to put it with passport. So that's generally where you normally look for wills.
Okay, or just under your pillow.
Or just under your pillow.
Okay, so you do that. So you don't need any further support from anybody else. It's sometimes that simple. But if you've got any kind of uncertainty, complex issues, and you want further guidance, then please take advantage of the offer made by Anis and his team. Jazakumullahu khairan wa ahsanul jaza. They've made provision for some refreshment as well. Please take advantage of that.